Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Hello, my name is Putri Syara and my partner Holikul Hikam. We are from class 3D English Education and we are from group 8 and we will presentation about syllable structure. Happy watching. Yeah, this is our table of contents. We have the syllable, cross-linguistic patterns in syllable structure, types of syllable, and syllable structure. First, about the syllable. The syllable is a natural unit of spoken language by which sound are organized in speech. The hierarchical organization of speech sounds into syllables is said to be a fundamental property of phonological structure in human language. Goldenstein et al. 2006, 228. And this unit plays a well-established role in linguistic analysis and description. However, the syllable eludes precise definition. Research has not yet established clear and consistent correlates for it that at the phonetic, physiological or phonological levels. Bells and Hooper 1000 or 1978, Lever 1994, Krakow 1999. Much like consonant and vowels, syllables are characterized by distributional, phonetic, and phonological features, of which no single criterion is sufficient for perfectly describing or predicting the trends observed. To take one example of such a criterion, in a review of research on the psychological organization of the syllable, Krakow 1999, 23 until 134, stage that years of research into this topic have yielded one disappointment after another, and that from an articulatory point of view, the speech stream simply can be divided into discrete linear layered units the size of the segment of the syllable. What empirical research has managed to establish with respect to psychological definition of the syllable is distinct interarticulatory patterns of syllable initial and syllable final consonant, at least in carefully speech pattern in the acoustic, phonology, and perfection of syllable consequence play an important role in determining and differentiating syllables, but they don't constitute complete or exceptionless definition of the syllable, either alone or in combination with one another. Nevertheless, the syllable enjoys a well-established role in phonology, proving to be a highly useful unit in linguistic analysis and description. For many languages, it has been demonstrated that stress placement, tone reduplication, and other phonological and morphological phenomena operate on the domain of the syllable. Similarly, the different boundary edges of a syllable are associated with special articulatory properties and may serve as environments for apollonic process, while native speaker intuition regarding the precise location of syllable boundaries aren't always consistent. There is a wealth of evidence that the unit has a psychological reality for speakers. In the existence of syllable rating system, word games and secret language using syllable as target structures. Poetry and lyrical song, which exploit syllable counts and syllable constituents pattern in systematic way, and consistent speaker and intuition regarding the number of syllables in a word. Additionally, evidence for the syllable as an organizational unit of language lies in the observation that those sequence of sound analyzed as syllables pattern in remarkably similar ways across language. In fact, strong cross-linguistic tendencies are observed for practically every dimension along which syllable structure and be analyzed. Some of these patterns will be summarized in the following section. Second, cross-linguistic patterns in syllable structure. Some of the cross-linguistic patterns of syllable structure that have been observed in the literature in the following section: the descriptive terms onset, nucleus, and coda to refer to constituent part of the syllable. The nucleus consists of the auditory peak of the syllable, typically a vowel. The onset refers to the consonant or group of consonants preceding the nucleus, and the coda refers to the consonant or group for consonant following the nucleus. It is useful to make this distinction because these constituents have been shown to behave independently of one another in many respects, both within language and cross-linguistically. In the following section, the terms are used in a more or less theoretically natural sense and often in reference to phonetic realization, rather than abstract representation of the syllable in theoretical models. The phonology constituency of syllable may be posited to take other form. 3 types of syllable. 1. Consonant cluster. Cross-linguistic patterns in consonant cluster are not limited to the tendency by which onset clusters tend to be large and less restricted than coda cluster. It has long been observed that some cluster shapes are cross-linguistically more frequent than others. In fact, the phonological shape of clusters has been used, along with cluster size, as a diagnostic for syllable structure complexity. In the classification used by Medicine 2013, an onset cluster in which the second member is a liquid or a glide is considered less complex than one in which the second member is a nasal, fricative, or stop. Onset and coda clusters have revealed trends in the voicing, place, manner, and sonority of consonant sequence in tautosyllabic cluster. Greenberg, 1978, was one of the first large-scale studies of this kind, investigating both the size and specific phonetic patterns of one's onset and coda cluster in 104 languages. This study yielded dozens of implicational generalization For instance, the presence of a cluster in a language tends to imply the presence of smaller sequences within it. In English, the one set as in spring implies the one set as in spy and pi as in pry. Greenberg also derived universal regarding phonetic and phonological properties of consonants in sequence. For example, sonorant plus voice. Obstruent codas tend to imply the occurrence of sonorant plus voiceless obstruent codas. Many cross-linguistic studies in a similar vein have followed from this work. In general, such studies tend to be limited in scope to be consonantal onset patterns is an exception in that it explores tendencies in cluster size and composition in word final codas of all sizes from 18 diverse languages. Some cross-linguistic studies of cluster patterns investigate voice and manner implication regarding pattern of typologically rare structures such as tautosyllabic sequence of obstruents. However, studies seeking to account for the cross-linguistically most frequent biconsonantal onset patterns, as followed by a liquid or a glide, such as AS, PL, OR, GW, are much more common in the literature.
Next is structure of syllable. The structure of syllable represents sonority peaks and optional edges, and is made up of three elements: the onset, the nucleus, and the coda. 1. CV or consonant vowel as a universal syllable type. One robust pattern in syllable structure typology is the cross-linguistic ubiquity of syllables of the shape CV, a single consonant followed by a vowel. 2. It has been claimed that CV syllables are found in all languages. For a few languages, it has been posited that this structure does not occur. Such analyses are typically highly abstract and apply only to underlying syllable forms. For both arranged and conjugate, it has been shown that CV structures do occur in surface phonetic forms. Due to its cross-linguistic prevalence, the CV structure has been called the universal syllable type and the least marked of all syllable structures. CV structures are set apart from other syllable types in numerous aspects of their behavior. If only one syllable type occurs in a language, that type will be of the form CV. Such languages are rare but attested. CV structures are acquired even before V or vowel structures in babbling stages of vocal development and language acquisition. The CV structure overwhelmingly predominates in frequency distributions of syllable types within and across languages. In ULISID, a database containing the syllabified lexicons of 17 genealogically and geographically diverse languages, CV syllables account for roughly 54% of the 250,000 syllables, despite the languages having a wide range of attested syllable patterns. Due to the above patterns, CV is often interpreted as a universal primitive element of human language. There are challenges to this view. For example, argue that the characterization of the CP type as inherently or unmarked is misleading or simplified, as the assumptions can be derived from a collection of generalization regarding other phonological patterns. They argue that the universal status of CV structures can be interpreted as emerging from a conspiracy of other cross-linguistic patterns which include frequent limitation on vowel hiatus and consonant clusters, tendencies toward obligatory consonant initial or vowel final word forms, and the fact that the existence of large consonant strings in any word position in a language implies the existence of simple single C structures in those positions. As a result of these interacting patterns, it follows that the canonical syllable patterns of any language will include structures of the form CV. Two asymmetries in onset and coda patterns. Many of the typological patterns involving syllables reveal asymmetries in the structure, distribution, and the frequency of onsets versus codas. It follows from the cross-linguistic ubiquity of the CV syllable type that all languages have syllables with onsets. By comparison, languages in which syllable codas do not occur are not uncommon. For example, 20.6% of the languages whose syllable structure were analyzed in the World Atlas of Languages Structures Online, or WOLS, have canonical CV or consonant vowel structures only. Thus, an implicational relationship holds between codas and onsets. If a language has a syllable with codas, then it also has syllables with onsets. While the CV shape dominates in frequency distribution within and across languages, its mirror image, the VC structure, is not nearly so freely distributed. Its cross-linguistic lexical frequency distribution is tiny compared to that of CV. Only 2.5% of the syllable in the ULISID database are of the VC type. The presence of VC shapes in a language generally implies the presence of V or vowel, CV or consonant vowel, and CVC consonant vowel consonant structures as well. These striking differences in distribution indicate that onsets and codas are not equivalent structures. In many languages with single-member codas, consonants in the coda position are restricted to a smaller set of segments than what can be found in onset position. For example, Cockamelia has a consonant panome inventory of P, T, K, TS, X, M, N, R, W, G. Any of these consonants may function as a syllable onset, but only the alveolar nasal or N and the glides WG occur in the coda position, except for under certain structural and prosodic condition. Krakow 1999 reports that some classes of segments, such as oral stops, are cross-linguistically disfavored in syllable final position. Similarly, Clements 1990 observes that when both sonorants and obstruents occur in syllable final position in language, the set of permissible obstruents tends to be smaller than the set of permissible sonorants. In a cross-linguistic investigation of syllable frequencies in the lexicons of Hawaiian Rotokas, Piraha, Eastern Kadazan, and Shipibo, Madison, and Precoda, 1992, found that CV sequences are relatively unrestricted in their occurrence. Most onset nucleus combination in the study occur at rates approximating the values that would be expected from their component segment frequencies. Meanwhile, nucleus coda combinations are most restricted in their combinatoriality, owing not only to generally smaller sets of allowable consonants in the coda position, but also to restrictions of sequences of particular segments. Both within and across languages, onsets and codas are most frequently simple, consisting of just one consonant. When languages do have tautosyllabic consonant clusters, they are more likely to occur in the onset position. In languages that have tautosyllabic cluster in both onset and coda positions, it is often the case that more elaborate structures are permitted for onsets. These tend to be larger, more frequent, and less restricted in their internal patterns than coda clusters. There are of course exceptions of these patterns. The Zine, for instance, has canonical syllable patterns of C, V, C, C, C. Next is nucleus patterns. Cross-linguistic tendencies have also been observed in the patterns of syllable nuclei, which function as the auditory peaks of syllables. The prototypical syllable nucleus consists of a vowel, and indeed there are many languages which allow only vowels in nucleus position. However, there is a range of cross-linguistic variability in the types of segments observed to occur as syllable nuclei. In some languages, liquids or nasals may function as syllabic. Such patterns are generally well accepted in their literature. Liquids and nasals are vowel-like in some properties of their acoustic structure, so it is clear how such sounds might function as auditory peaks of syllables. More rarely, obstruents are reported to occur as syllable nuclei. Such cases are often considered problematic, as they involve sounds which are not vowel-like in their acoustic properties and which may even be voiceless. This view discounts the fact that there are many kinds of obstruents with highly silent auditory properties, such as sibilant prefixes and adjective stops. As is the case with consonant clusters, accounts for cross-linguistic patterns of syllabic consonant often appeal to sonority as explanatory mechanism, with predominant patterns said to reflect a preference for high sonority syllable nuclei. Along similar lines of reasoning, nucleus patterns in languages are said to follow a sonority-based implicational hierarchy by which the presence of a given sound as a syllable nucleus in a language implies the presence of all more sonorous types of sound as syllable nuclei. Thus, a language with syllabic nasals is predicted to also have syllabic liquids and vowels. In this model, syllabic obstruents are dispreferred and predicated to be the rarest kind of syllabic consonant. A survey of syllabic consonant patterns in 182 diverse languages suggests that the sonority account for syllable nucleus patterns does not capture some important cross-linguistic trends. Of the 85 languages with syllabic consonants, 29 had syllable liquids, 63 had syllabic nasals, and 34 had syllabic obstruents. The patterns considered in this survey include syllabic consonants arising through synchronic processes of vowel reduction, in addition to invariable syllabic consonant patterns, which are more often used to argue for a sonority basis for syllable nucleus patterns. However, the findings suggest that syllabic obstruents are not exceedingly rare, as often claimed, and might in fact be more common than syllabic liquids. A sonority-based implicational hierarchy fails to account for a robust minority of the patterns observed in the study. Like 10 per 35 or 29% of the languages with syllabic obstruents do not have syllabic liquids or nasals. Thanks for watching, have a nice day, and bye bye.